Here's your Saturday sports wake-up call. Your host, John O'Donnell.
Good morning, SKO Network. This is John O'Donnell, and this is Cinderblock Sports. We are live from the Deb McCune Broadcast Center here in Akron, Ohio. I am joined by Shotgun Riding, producing the show, Aaron, the voice, K-Back.
Riding Chewy.
Yeah, and we have Joe running around here somewhere. Joe! He is gathering our betting slips because this is Show Me the Money weekend here on Cinderblock Sports. We need the money! So, before we get into that.
I'm no Cuba Gooding Jr.
You look just like him though.
I do.
You can call or text the show, and we hope you will. You will be able to call at the bottom of this hour. You can text the show all show long at 234-200-5110. You can tweet the show at Cinder Sports. Tweet me at HitTrain1. Please also follow the show. Give us a like on Facebook, Cinderblock Sports, and you can email me, cinderblocksports@gmail.com. I am everywhere. We got asked at the end of the show last week where you can find replays of this show. I'm glad someone asked that. It will be on iTunes. It is also on YouTube. So please go to the webpage, go to the Facebook page, our Twitter. You can find our replays if you want. One thing that I will tell you is we also have some in-depth interviews that don't always make the show that can be found on iTunes on the podcast. So please check that out. And we thank everybody. Give us a like, give us a follow, and thanks again for listening. As I mentioned, this is Show Me the Money weekend. We're focusing on sports gambling this week. So to that end, today's text and Twitter question is, what is your best or worst bet you've ever made on sports? For me, and I've made a lot of them, I had a terrible beat a few years ago in the NCAA tournament. My co-host on Bad Friend Choices, Rick Carpenter, who will be joining the show later today, and I had the over in a game, which means we needed the total to reach a certain number for us to win money, or jelly beans, the case may be. And it was flying over the total. It looked like we were going to be perfectly fine. We were going to indulge in tasty beverages and have some jelly beans in our pockets. And then both teams developed clankitis. They missed every shot humanly possible, and we ended up giving away jelly beans instead of enjoying those tasty jelly beans for ourselves. So please share your story with us. Again, 234-200-5110 is the text line, or tweet us at Cinder Sports.
I got a story for you.
I would love to hear it.
The first time I did a competitive bracket, like actually submitted one I've been doing brackets for, at office parties and things like that. Didn't mean anything, just like bragging rights. But the first time I did a competitive one, I submitted it to the local city newspaper, not the dealer, but, the little local paper. And I won. I won golf passes, and I don't golf. I won restaurant passes, which is a really hoity-toity restaurant, but like I ate good steak for like a month, and I'd be like gift certificates galore. But it floored me that I won, and the reason that I won was that was the year that Michigan went up against Louisville in the final, and no one had either team in the final, and that's what pushed me over the top.
There you go. See, one of the best. Mine was a bad beat. We had a good cover here from Aaron Quebec, and again, we want to hear yours. Text or tweet the show. So gambling is a big part of sports, and it was about a year ago where the United States Supreme Court, they invalidated a law called PAPSA, the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act. They ruled that it was unconstitutional. And what PAPSA did was it said the federal government can prohibit sports gambling in certain states and not others. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court said that's illegal. You can't just have Vegas have sports gambling and all the other states cannot. That just doesn't make sense from a constitutional perspective. And as a constitutional law guy, I find the case very interesting. I just don't have 8 hours to get into it. Now, that case itself did not make sports gambling legal in other states. States still have to adopt gambling laws, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But it did open the door. It allowed states to make the decision. And now, almost a dozen states have sports wagering. And 10 other states, including Ohio, are considering how to legalize sports in their state. The reason we're doing the show today is these legislatures, when they pass these bills, there's a window. The legislature closes usually in the beginning of the summer. So in Ohio, it's June 30th. So if something does not happen by June 30th, we're going to have to wait a whole another year, absent an act of God or the governor, to get sports gambling in Ohio. So we want to cover the issue. And to do that, we're going to have Rich Exner, who is actually a data analytical editor for Cleveland.com. He also works for the Cleveland Plain Dealer. He's been following this very closely. He's going to let us in on the scoop of what's going on in Ohio and what it could mean financially. And he's got some really interesting stories from a sports perspective regarding data analytics. We're also going to have Derek Stevens. Derek Stevens is changing the face of Las Vegas. I am a degenerate gambler who goes to Las Vegas numbers of times a year. And Derek Stevens is building a new casino in downtown Vegas. This is the first one in downtown Vegas, also known as Old Las Vegas, in almost 40 years. It is going to feature the largest sports book in Las Vegas. Right now it's the Superbook, the Westgate. That one is a football field long. It is absolutely massive. Now this one will not be that big. It's going to be about 80 yards wide. What it will be is 3 stories tall. It is going to be absolutely massive. Derek has also opened the first new sportsbook company, meaning a company that makes lines and takes bets in nearly a decade. And again, he's going up against Caesars. He's going up against William Hill. It's amazing the challenges he's taking on in Vegas, and he's really redefining Las Vegas.
We have a story that was tweeted in by Tony. He says that he won nearly $1,000 on a 5-6-7 trifecta when American Pharoah won the Triple Crown at Belmont.
That is a great story. And horse racing, I think, lends itself to those stories, right? One that I will share is I meant to bet the 1, 2, and 11 horse in Justify's Derby run. I accidentally bet the 1, 5, which was Justify. I didn't want Justify in my trifecta. I got him, and damn good thing because he won. So, and I think it was only like $80, but again, I can't read, and as you know, it's my understanding there is no math on this show. So apparently I got lucky there.
It was my understanding that there would be no math.
And I need that because I can't do math. So we have Derek, we have Rich. Who else are we going to have? Well, my co-host for Bad Friend Choices, Rick Carpenter, also going to join the show. We're going to talk about the NBA. We're going to talk about the Browns getting the draft, which is huge for Cleveland. Huge. And we're going to cover that more, but stay tuned. And, one thing I want to talk to Rick about, Rick owns the Windsor Pub. I want to get his thoughts on the practical impact of Ohio legalized sports gambling. So he'll be on the show. We're also going to talk about the NBA playoffs. That's probably the biggest actual sports story we have going on right now. We also want to talk about the PGA Championships, the Preakness, both of which did not get the same buzz that we see when storylines are involved. And I will say that with a caveat that Brooks Koepka is about as great as we've seen in a while, and nobody seems to give a damn. 2 topics we'll get into if we have time, and I hope we do. I want to talk about the risk of game fixing in the aftermath of legalized sports gambling. And I want to talk about how storylines are so important to events like the Preakness, to events like the PGA Championship, and other things to draw in casual sports fans. Again, next segment around 9:25 a.m., we're going to open the phone lines. Please give us a call. We'll also open the phone lines later on in the show. But again, text us all show long, 234-200-5110. All right, let's start with some headlines. The PGA Championship, being a Saturday show, the PGA Championship concluded last Sunday, so it's been almost a week. But I do think it's very interesting from a few perspectives. 1, Tiger Woods. He wins the Masters, and everybody says Tiger's back. Tiger's the man. Tiger is the man. Tiger's also 40-some years old at this point. And he did not play a tournament since the Masters. He also did not practice on Wednesday before the PGA Championship. He then played like crap for 2 days, and he went back to his very short but beautiful girlfriend. So what does that mean? Well, it means one thing. Tiger is human. He's 40-some years old. He's got surgeries. I think he's had about 329 surgeries, and he's just not what he once was, which was the greatest single golfer ever. Now he is lightning in a bottle, right? He's going to get hot in a place like the Masters in Augusta where he's played it 95 different times. He's going to win a tournament here and there. But Bethpage Black is a long course with rough like you've never seen. And he just had nothing for that course. He's never going to be consistently great anymore. There's too many young lions. We're going to talk about Brooks Koepka, but you've got Justin Thomas, you've got Jordan Spieth. I think Rory McIlroy still plays golf at sometimes. You've got Tony Finau. He's just never going to be the dominant golfer that Tiger once was. And I know we wanted that storyline to be there, but we were really fooling ourselves if we thought Tiger Woods with no practice and on a gimpy body was going to be able to compete here. He wasn't, and he went home real early. Brooks Koepka's the story here. Wire-to-wire winner. He's the most dominant golfer in sports, and nobody could pick him out of a lineup if they needed to save their lives. I know I couldn't. The guy hates the media. He was in New York for the PGA Championship. The PGA asked him, hey, can you do a media tour for us? He said, no, I'm going back to Texas to smoke brisket. Which, hey, great choice. But you need a face of the PGA, and Brooks Koepka will not be it. The real storyline here was he was winning by like 95 strokes going into Sunday and almost choked it away. He almost choked it away. Dustin Johnson was on his heels. Brooks held on. He had a 7-stroke lead going into Sunday, won by 2. And afterwards, Brooks was the man when he talked about how easy winning majors is. And you don't hear this kind of honesty, but if you think about it, he's not wrong. First, he said, look, you look at the field of golfers, 50% of them just can't win. Okay, fair enough. They're going to compete, but they can't win majors. Fair enough. Then he said, 50% of them aren't at my level. Okay, so now we're down to 25% of the tour. That leaves about 15 to 25 golfers. And he said, I can feel like I can beat them on any given weekend. Again, he's not saying anything wrong, but he's kind of slapping those 15 or 20 golfers and the rest of the PGA Tour right in their mouth. M-O-U-F, for those of you who are spelling with me. And when they asked him, can you win double-digit majors? His response was, it seems reasonable and it may be easy. Hats off to you, Brooks Koepka, for having those onions to say things like that. And I do think Brooks Koepka's attitude comes from where he came from. He was overseas, not playing in the overseas PGA Tour. He was overseas playing challenger events, right? He was basically playing the Panera Bread Open in Budapest, Hungary, right? I mean, and that was a big event for him. He won like 7 shillings. And then he comes over and he is dominating. He won the U.S. Open 2 years ago. He won it last year. He won a PGA last year. He won a PGA this year. He has more majors than he does regular tour wins. And I think he's on his way to being something really special. And so does Vegas. Tying into the theme there. The host does something good here on Cinderblock Sports. The Westgate came out with a prop bet. Now, Westgate is the biggest sports book in Vegas, second to William Hill. And their bet is this: over under number of majors by 2040. So that is about 18 years, 22 years. I don't know. My understanding there'd be no math. The number is 7.5. The Westgate is guessing that he will have 7.5 majors in the next 20 plus years. That number seems incredibly low. I will be in Vegas in a few months. You will see a John O'Donnell shaped blur heading to a betting window if that line is anywhere close to what it stands now. And we're going to know more about it. I think this might be a sucker bet. I think Westgate might be fishing here because we've got the PGA Championship, but we still have 2 more majors. So we'll see how serious this bet is at the end of the year after they've played the British Open, after they've played the U.S. Open. But if that number, 7.5 majors, holds up, I'll bet that all day long because I think he's going to win at least 10. So that's golf. And for those of you who are still awake, we're going to move to the NBA. The Warriors, surprise, 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 have made it to the NBA Finals. They swept Portland 4-0.
No.
I know. I'm
Really?
shocked. Shocked face.
Wow.
Right.
The Warriors. The Golden State Warriors.
Golden State Warriors, right? And I'll tell you an interesting story on this. It's not true anymore, but when they first won the Western Conference Finals, the odds for them to win the finals were actually more expensive. You would have had to pay more money than at the beginning of the year. That's how sure Vegas was at the beginning of this year that they were going to win. It was cheaper to get them at the beginning of the year
than it is now.
Than it would have been. Now that line has moved all of a sudden because Vegas started watching the Eastern Conference Finals and realized it's me, you, and Rick Carpenter against the Warriors, and it's probably not a good thing for the Eastern Conference. But one thing about the Golden State Warriors, which might be a little dangerous, Portland had 3 15-point leads in this series. At 3 different games, and they didn't win one of them. And this is without Kevin Durant, without Boogie Cousins, and without Iguodala for Game 4. If you started a team with those 3 players, you could make the playoffs. You might even win a round or 2 with starting a team with Durant, Cousins, and Iguodala. And those guys aren't even playing. Portland threw everything they could at them. I think a guy named Myers Leonard had 30 points. Myers and Leonard, I don't even know who that guy is. Neither did anybody except Mr. and Mrs. Leonard. He scored 30 points. It didn't matter. Golden State goes to their 5th straight final. Never been done since the 1960s. I know, everybody sit down. Michael Jordan would have done it. Look, Michael Jordan had to serve his gambling, had to try minor league baseball for 2 years. And because he did, the Bulls did not go to 5 straight finals. It didn't happen. You can tell me it might have, but it didn't. This Golden State team is one of the best we've ever seen. And I know I personally sell them short because they've done it with a collection of superstars. But think about that. The Bulls didn't exactly have me playing center for them. They had superstars too. They had Tony Kukoc, who was the best European player, Scottie Pippen, top 50 player, Michael Jordan, not bad at the game of basketball, and a bunch of really good role players. That was a really good team of stars too. But the Golden State Warriors, 5th straight finals. Again, LeBron went to 8, but it was with 2 different teams. So, Golden State Warriors, hats off to them. The Raptors and Bucks. The Eastern Conference final is absolutely awesome. And I was finally proven right after I said I was wrong. I have been saying all playoff series long, the Bucks are going to have growing pains. They're a young team. That's what happens. And then they smashed the Raptors in games 1 and 2. Last week I sat here and told you I was wrong. The Bucks do not need to grow up. They're ready to go. They're ready right now. And now they've lost 3 in a row for the first time all year. So I was right after I admitted I was wrong.
There is one thing that I think you said it last week, where this is a home team series. And so far that has proven the point. The home team has won this series.
Until game 5. Last game 5 was actually in Milwaukee. Toronto got that win, broke serve, and now they can finish it off tonight.
There you go.
And look, I was right about the Bucks because it happens to everyone. It happened to Michael Jordan. He couldn't get past the Celtics. He couldn't get past the Pistons. He finally did and became the champion that he became. LeBron couldn't get past the Pistons. And the Spurs smashed him when he did get to the finals the first time. And I'm sure Rick Carpenter will point out to me why else LeBron has failed. The point is, those growing pains happened. It looked like Giannis Antetokounmpo was immune to that. Turns out he wasn't. We're going to talk more about that series, but I want to talk to Rick about this later. I think Kawhi Leonard is becoming the closest thing to Michael Jordan we've seen in a long time. Mind you, he's battling a leg injury. There was a specific moment in that game 5 where he went off for a shot on the wrong foot because his leg was bothering him. He's dominating on offense. He's dominating on defense. He is an absolute killer, and he can score from everywhere. And that's why he is dominating this series, and Giannis is not. Giannis Antetokounmpo looks like an elk lost in the woods at times. He's running down the court, spinning like a whirling dervish, and throwing the ball out of bounds to absolutely nobody. Giannis has one move. It's the most dominant move in basketball, and that is plow everybody over and dunk the basketball. But Toronto is throwing a lot of bodies at him. He's struggling with that, and because of that, it looks like the Raptors are going to get the privilege of getting boat raced by the Warriors here coming up. We have a lot more to cover. We're going to cover the Preakness. We're going to cover sports gambling, and we're going to have your calls in the next segment. You're listening to Cinder Block Sports. I'm your host, John O'Donnell, and we will be right back.